Hello and welcome to episode 2 of the Intune for MSPs Meetup. If you're with us live, it is February 17th, 2026, and it's whatever time it is, wherever you are in the world. You can find us on YouTube, LinkedIn, and maybe X if they've resolved their technical difficulties, and of course, at the Tech Community Live page where you can also leave us comments and questions. I'm Andy Rosted. I'm pleased to be your host today, and thank you for joining us. For those of you who haven't been here before, I want to start by sharing the mission. Why do we have this call? What are we here for? And I promise this is the only slide that I'm going to read verbatim. We're here to understand the needs of managed service providers, MSPs, you, and respond over this call and over our Intune for MSPs resource page with useful and relevant resources to help you build your business with Intune and the rest of the Microsoft 365 stack. We've got a stack of talented presenters here today to help you and me accomplish that goal. First up, I want to introduce to you Lior Bella. He's the Director of Business Growth for Microsoft Intune, and he is going to share with you some of the insights into the MSP landscape that we've come to learn, especially from a recent event that he just attended, the Reddit Boom. Ladies and gentlemen, Lior Bella.
Hi, everyone. Thanks again for having me. Excited to be on our second ever MSP call. So few quick things. First of all, this past couple of weeks ago, myself and the Microsoft team attended the Right of Boom event, which is an MSSP event, an MSP event in Vegas. We met with I personally met with over 100 partners myself and got a lot of great feedback. So first of all, if you were there, thank you so much for the feedback. It was a phenomenal event. We definitely learned a lot, and we definitely saw a lot of excitement around adopting Microsoft solution with the focus of Microsoft Intune, with the focus on Microsoft Intune, with all of our partners. So truly excited for it. It was a really good session, and I look forward to being in more of those sessions. But before we go to the cool content today from Sherry's and Steve, let's go up to a few more learnings that we have with the next slide. So the future of MSP, if you don't know and you didn't experience it yet, we have a session called The Future of MSPs. It's been extremely successful, and we actually might do one in the future online for all of you. But the key pieces that you really want to make sure that we are looking at the plan is, first of all, the cloud native piece. I know we are preaching it. I know we're saying that so many times, but it's so crucial for the success of your customer, success of your organization, and the ability for you to scale and grow moving forward. So cloud native is number one. Zero trust is number two. It's an outcome of cloud native plus Entra plus a conditional access and additional security features. And the great news is we have Sherry's on the call today. She is one of the organizers and founders of the Zero Trust Workshop. And we have a workshop that can be phenomenal for you, and she's going to take you over it. And the good news that whatever you have, your customers have Business Premium, Microsoft 365 Business Premium and up, you can use the Zero Trust Workshop for free. Then we're moving to the new era. So MSPs need to acknowledge that that's it. The old school approach of ticketing, deployment, basic services are gone. You need to be a one-stop shop, single pane of glass, call it whatever you want, but you need to provide all of those capabilities with a big piece that we see from so many of our MSPs. It's AI. How to prepare your customers for the AI era. So there is data governance, there is a preparation from a SharePoint perspective, from Intune, to identify everything. You need to prepare for agents. Agents are humans, in a sense, from a access rights perspective and security. So make sure that you follow up with us in the next few meetings, because there is a lot of greatness that's coming through these four pieces. If we move to the next slide, the first things that you need to start doing is to understand your offerings. What are the offerings that you're looking to offer for your customers? Again, get out of those ticket support only, or get out of this deployment and setting up a network. You need to have end-to-end solution for your customers, as you are the trusted IT and security services for your customers. With that being said, make sure that you understand the offering. The second piece is to learn and practice and refine. You need to understand what is important for your customers. Our customers care about AI, so you want to do some sort of an AI assessment and help them to adopt AI and building agents. Do you want to make sure that they are fully secure? Do you want to use the application management for all of their employees that bring their own devices? All of those pieces, and then come with solve the customer challenges. Come to a customer with a plan and outcomes of what is happening as a result of the adoption of Microsoft 365. Yes, it's more security. Yes, it's better management. Yes, it's better preparation for AI. And hopefully it's even cheaper for them because they're using the Microsoft 365 licenses. So there is a lot of great value over here. Next slide.
Thank you very much, Lior. Everybody, I know that is a ton of really dense information to wrestle with, and we're going to keep repeating these themes. I, for one, am one of those people who needs to hear something a number of times with different language until I really get the message. And in that spirit, we're going to start this call the same way we did last week with an Intune refresher in 2 slides. Now, this is a little different content than we had, but it still brings up, this video, I think, really does a great job of explaining device and endpoint management. So imagine that your devices and you as an IT MSP are running a device daycare, right? Your devices need to stay up to date. They need to be protected. And if they don't follow their compliance rules, they get set in timeout. And that's what Intune allows you to do. It allows you to make sure that only the devices that are following the rules and being good little devices get access to all the company resources, and the rest go into timeout. So a little quick video. These are available on the Microsoft 365 YouTube channel. It's a really fun way to explain that Intune is your device daycare and helps you enforce the rules. Once again, I just want to overwhelm you with how many licenses include Microsoft Intune. Intune's also available as a standalone SKU. Your customers may already be entitled to Intune, and they may, and you may have all these creative ways using frontline SKUs and otherwise to get users access to Intune. Another piece of news coming up in the future: Intune Suite capabilities. Now we launched these. Gosh, it must be almost 2 years ago that the Intune Suite debuted. Intune Suite capabilities are being added to Microsoft E3 and E5, and you can see on the right-hand side of the screen that the reactions from social media are super positive. These have been really in high demand. And I know from the survey that a lot of you took that a lot of you do have customers using E3 and E5. So I want to encourage you to go to our Intune for MSPs page. You'll find more information about this and start skilling up on what these capabilities are going to be. You've got a couple months to ramp up. This is really exciting news as an MSP, how to manage and deploy these new capabilities to improve the performance of your customers' tenants. So here we come to our main chapter, right? What do MSPs want from Microsoft? So we undertook some research, and again, thank you to all of you who responded to our survey. I'm going to put the QR code up a couple times today, but when we hear from you, we can really make this call as valuable as you want it to be, as valuable as you need it to be. But we break down our findings into these 3 buckets, right? We want to make Intune work for MSPs. The number one way we do that is by having these calls, having lots of communication back and forth, having our resource page, and of course, finding partners out there who are helping to solve challenges specific to MSPs. We know that Microsoft has not historically met all the needs of MSPs, and we've got lots of help for you out there with our partners. We also hear that technical training is really important. As MSPs, you've got to have a lot of technical breadth, and sometimes that means that we can't specialize in all the nuance. Intune is super powerful. It's super deep. There can be multiple ways to accomplish objectives. What we heard is, give me MSP-specific skilling. Tell me what to do and how to do it. I've got some exciting new resources to reveal to you later. And of course, in sales and marketing, we want to help you tell the message, just like that Intune for endpoint daycare video. How do you get a less sophisticated customer to understand the value without knowing automatically what endpoint management or device management or zero trust mean? And so that's what we think we need to explain to you. So again, we're going to start with how are we helping make Intune work for MSPs? We heard from the survey this verbatim question. I want application updating, patching, and packaging improvements. How do I keep up with them? How do I improve this process? And I'm happy to announce that we have partners who have generously offered to those who sign up. You can reach the sign up at aka.ms/Intune app packaging. You can reach the sign up at our Intune for MSPs resource page. I'll show the QR code and the link to that, but it's aka.ms/Intune for MSPs. You can find application packaging partners. So what happens is, if you have line of business apps, if you have applications that only your customers have custom developed, you can upload those to Intune, but it requires a repackaging process that at scale can require a lot of time. And so we've partnered with firms that can automate. Sometimes they have many of these common applications already in catalogs that you can add. These are technologies that are built on top of Intune, and they can really help take that application packaging backlog and shrink it down and really accelerate your progress to getting your customers' applications into the cloud. Steve has also got a great resource we're going to share with you later on how to do that. So stick around throughout the call. MVP Steve Weiner is here. He's going to talk about how to migrate your customers to Intune and application packaging, obviously part of that. We want specific MSP-specific skilling. We want to share that with you. Here's another quote we got from the survey response. Thanks for that. We need guidance, explicit guidance. So what I want to share with you is that we have just released, we don't even have a landing page yet. You can get the direct links on our Intune for MSP page, but this is deployment guides created by our customer experience engineering team and our Center of Excellence solution architects. These are 5 deployment guides, explicit guidance aimed at how do you configure Microsoft 365 Business Premium for a small and medium-sized business. These are what we call like one size fits most guidance. It's explicit, do this, not a bunch of choices. We have videos where you watch the video on one screen, you have your admin console open on the other, you follow along, and you're gonna get great results for your customers. And where to find that, those follow along videos, you can go right to those videos. The deployment guides are more comprehensive. There's a PowerPoint that you can read along with. I make videos, but I like to be able to read things at my own pace. So we've got click-through guides, interactive do this next guidance. There's lots of great copy and paste capability there, as well as these new deployment guides, all again at aka.ms/Intune for MSPs. If you didn't hear what you want to hear, take the survey. Let us know what you do want to hear. There, you can also leave comments wherever you're watching this stream and on our Tech Community Live page. And now I want to introduce, Lior mentioned earlier, but we have my colleague, Sheris Babkov here. Sheris is going to talk to you about the Intune Zero Trust Workshop. This is an incredible resource that you can use. You can develop a business product around working through this workshop, and I'm going to turn it over to Sheris. Sheris, take it away. Thanks so much for being here, and tell us what you're going to tell us. Uh-oh, we've got a mute.
Hi everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I'm so happy to be here today and speak with you. I work for Intune Marketing, focused on customer adoption and customer success. So this is a perfect forum for me to speak with you and share with you what's interesting about Zero Trust and Zero Trust Workshop. I don't know how many of you have dealt with Zero Trust as a concept when you interact with your customers. It can be of nuance, right? Throughout the years, Zero Trust has been presented itself as a framework, ideology, a narrative, and a lot of things. And companies, since pandemic, started to care so much about security on top of enable their employees at scale and digitally. So we've seen a boom of business growth since pandemic, or even before that companies started invest in getting to the cloud. And in the meantime, equip their IT departments and security departments with Zero Trust philosophy and using the principles to reinforce their environments. And since it's just such a broad concept and it touches every single entry point of the company, it always presents itself as complicated for decision makers in both IT and security department. So here is when I talk about the Zero Trust Workshop, it's really a group of Microsoft engineers got together, especially custom success engineers. They're like, let's make it easy for people. Let's design a path where customer can really see where in this journey Zero Trust kicks in, and how do we make their decisions and policies and changes while following the Zero Trust Workshop, while navigating Microsoft product can help them drive that success across IT and security departments. We don't want to charge customers for that. We wanted to make it available to customers directly, to partners directly, so customers can leverage it directly to run it against their environment and know directly what they need to work on. And partners who have a business with customers can walk them through it, help them understand what's most important to them, and then make thoughtful decisions on what they want, what do they work on step by step. So that's what we mean by Zero Trust Workshop. So if you click on aka.ms/ZT workshop, this is where you can land on. I hope everyone can see my screen. Once you get there, it has a simple description on what Zero Trust is, and the three main principles that we consider in the industry: verify explicitly, use least privilege access, and assume a compromise. And we give customers and partners a strong reason why they wanted to run this workshop, i.e. make the journey easy and consumable for every single person who touches the company environment. And then the third pillar shares about how to run the workshop. We have a lot of videos, so you're not going to have to read a lot of words, text-heavy words, to figure out what it is about. And if you navigate it to the top, and it would show you, a plan page. In the plan page, I just going to quickly walk you through two things that you probably wanted to take away today, and then leave the rest for you to explore on your own. So when we talk about Zero Trust Workshop, there are essentially two components about it. If you or your customer, you manage your customer's environment directly, i.e. you have their admin access of the environment, I would say start with step one. If you click on the Zero Trust Assessment link here, it leads to a doc page that shares you how to run the assessment. Essentially, it's a PowerShell tool that can help you browse through your environment. And then after run the script, it will show you a dashboard. Let me bring you there real quick. In this dashboard, you can see kind of the main telemetry of your own environment and the privileged users and authentication methods, user authentication, and other device information. So from here, you can take thoughtful actions accordingly. Seems to be very intuitive, right? And then our engineering team must continue to develop this UI. So eventually it's going to get even more enriched content here, and you don't have to step outside. But this has a premise, right? You have to have a tenant with Microsoft already. What about the customers that maybe just start their cloud journey, or they just use some of the Microsoft products, but not all? There's a second option here. If you go to the first page that I went from, I'm going to start again. Okay, I'm going to type again to the plan page. Essentially, if I go back to the plan page, there is another link you can click to on step 2 that's called Zero Trust Workshop spreadsheet. Once you click on the spreadsheet, you can download a doc that is Zero Trust roadmap. How to use it is if you navigate to the bottom, there's a home page. It shares with you kind of README and how do you navigate each of the pillars. If you work on identity, you can click on identity roadmap. If you work on device, IT Intune related products, you can navigate to the device roadmap. map. If you go through each of the stage, it actually, if you think about the whole device telemetry, you can think about how do you manage your Windows devices, how do you manage your mobile devices, how do you manage your Mac OS devices, and every single page is spelled out for you as it shows on the screen. If you or a customer have any questions on what this means to your company, you can simply click on one of those cells here, and it can lead to a doc page that gives you an explanation about what this means and connect to a Microsoft Learn page and even a video that showcase how to navigate this topic and walk through the customers about how do you get conditional access, for example. Not only that, recently our Intune team has invested in a cell-by-cell explainers video. We have published that through YouTube, and with that, you are able to navigate how to set up each step along your way when it comes to customer cloud native journey. So this is a wrap up of how to use Zero Trust Workshop. I'm looking forward to hear more from you on your user experiences. I'm sorry the screen is rendering a little slow, so I cannot show you the whole picture. I highly recommend you download Excel and look at it on your own devices, and that'll be easy to navigate. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Sheris. I'm not an Excel fanatic. I came late to the Excel party, but this workshop demonstrates the capabilities of this product in such an amazing way. And it's so clear and visually crisp. I'm just like, I want to do this workshop. This is not my area of expertise, but I encourage all of you to visit the link and explore this. You can develop new offerings for your customers based on this guidance that, as Sheris said, we make free to our customers, and we want your feedback. Is this at the right altitude for an MSP? Is this resource useful to you? This is always, always, always the question we have for you at Microsoft. We are dedicated to making Intune work for MSPs. That's why we're here. That's why this call is here. So help us help you. Give us a little bit of that knowledge. And let's go to chapter 3 before we bring out our MVP, and that is the sales and marketing MSP specific assets. What I want to introduce you today is, again, we have a new link where you can download a campaign in a box. Now, what you see on the screen right here are the pre-designed assets, but we also have some bare bones customizable assets so you can add your own branding. We think it's really simple. You tell us whether or not, when you download these assets, we've got customizable videos. You can use PowerPoint to add your own logo and call to action URLs to these professionally produced Microsoft videos that talk about how to protect your customers' devices. We don't get into a lot of jargon, but it speaks to the MSP message of, we're going to keep your devices safe and give you the ability to work from anywhere. Some of the big challenges that MSP customers face. We've got a social media campaign, and we've got some suggested email copy in there for you too. So again, we think it's really easy to customize, but you've got to tell us. And so those resources are already available at aka.ms/Intune for MSPs. Look for the Protect My Devices campaign in a box. And now I want to introduce one of the great creators in the Intune space, Steve Weiner. He's a Microsoft Windows and Devices Security MVP, has created videos for that follow along guidance series that I talked about before. And he's here today to talk about planning your customers' Intune migration. Clap along at home if you can. Please help me welcome Steve. Steve, take it away. Thanks so much for being here. A real pleasure to have you. So we've connected to Steve via an interdimensional wormhole, and we're getting some solar flare interference, which might be affecting his ability to hear me. I'm going to wave my hand slowly. Steve? All right. So we've got...
yeah, can you guys hear me okay?
We've got him. All right.
Okay,
we've
there we
established
go. I lost
satellite
my audio.
contact. All right. Steve is coming to us from an undisclosed location in a galaxy far, far away. Take it away, Steve. Thanks so much.
Okay, so Thank you, Andy. Sorry about that. Why don't we go ahead and start talking about moving over to Intune and modern management, right? So the goal of this, of course, is uh, transitioning our customers from hybrid, I'll call it traditional AD join state to a cloud native Intune managed environment. And that, of course, fits into everything that we've been talking about with zero trust compliance. So this can be, a daunting thing to start off with, especially when you have customers in various states, right? So before we get going, real quick, let's just talk about where the customers are today that you're working with, right? So traditionally, most folks are in this AD domain join state. I would venture to say that almost everyone is, right? It's traditional, it's what we know. Um, GPO, right? It's out there. Really no cloud identity. Now, hopefully, a lot of us are in a hybrid state, right? Hybrid Entra join or hybrid Azure AD join, if you know it is that. This is when a device is traditionally Active Directory joined. It has a presence in Entra. You can manage it via traditional GPOs, but of course you can do things like use Intune or hopefully co-management. And we'll get into that in a little bit. And this still requires line of sight to a domain controller, but it is a good place to be in the middle. And we'll kind of tie that into the target state, which of course is cloud native. Entra ID join is the term. You also may know it as Azure AD join. This is where a device is only joined to Entra ID. It's managed entirely via Intune, and it has zero on-premise dependency. Now, that doesn't mean zero on-premises access, though, so don't let that deter you. Let's talk a little bit about some of the challenges you might find with hybrid join, right? And this will kind of go towards why we need to move customers and why the cloud native is the best practice when you talk about a zero trust landscape, right? So having objects in both places leads to complexity, right? You have a computer object on the domain, you have a computer object in Entra, right? We want to kind of simplify that, right? And have one place where the machine is managed. One thing you'll see is policy conflicts a lot, right? GPOs will still apply in a hybrid join world when we really want to move towards Intune configuration and modern device management profiles. So we don't want to slow adoption of that by adhering and running into these older, we'll say, GPOs. Autopilot provisioning, right, which will replace imaging. It allows us to get devices to our end users. It allows us to, drop ship. A user sets it up themselves out of the box. We treat the PC like a phone because they're both endpoints. There's a lot of friction when we try to do that in a traditional hybrid domain join environment. So we really want to be Entra joined for that. We don't want to rely on, the line of sight to the DC. We want to make sure that the device is under our management and can be compliant anywhere. How many of you had a situation where, maybe between 2020 and 2022 or 3, devices would fall off the domain and we'd have no way to put them back? So that all goes away, right? Also, with those legacy protocols, there's a lot of risk and exposure there. And will slow down our zero trust adoption. And of course, this is where Microsoft is headed. That's where the focus is on these new technologies. Intune Suite, endpoint privilege management, new ways of doing app deployment. These are all investments being made in a cloud native landscape. So the vision, of course, as I keep saying, I'll be a little bit like a broken record here, is cloud native identity. Entra ID. Entra ID join is the way to go. So that's exactly what we want. Unified endpoint management. The thing about Intune is a robust, full-featured device management platform, not just for your Windows PCs, but it can handle Mac. It can handle iOS, which is also iPad OS, I believe. I can't keep up on the names, and Android. So you can have your whole device family in Intune, which will make things easier when you're keeping track of assets and their compliance. And of course, by moving to cloud native, by moving to Intune, right, we have the tools to achieve zero trust posture on the device side. Like you saw before in the workshop, right? There's zero trust for identity, device, apps, data. It's really important that we do our job to make sure our devices can hold up their end, because they're a critical part of this. Going through the cloud native endpoint and what's involved in there. And of course, this is a lot. So I'm trying to, let's, do a high level of this. Windows Autopilot. This was a defining turning point in Windows management, right? Gone are the days of building a thick image and wiping what came on the PC and putting it on there, right? We can do true zero touch deployment. We can ship devices directly to a user. We can have all the pre-configurations come down, all the apps that they're entitled to, self-service. They can go get what they need. So literally go from the box to a fully configured device, right in front of them, which is great. It lets frees up our IT so they can do more important things. Compliance policies. Compliance, if device configuration tells a PC what to do, compliance makes sure it did that. We can say, hey, PC, you're supposed to have BitLocker encryption. Well, compliance policies are going to make sure it does. And if it can't, right, it's not going to let it proceed and get into our resources. GPOs have been superseded by configuration profiles. The configuration profiles do all the same thing we want. Control hardware features on the device, enable things for certain users, deploy our Wi-Fi, our certificates, our VPN profiles. So everything you're going to need to configure on the device, you'll find in one place. And this was brought up before by Andy. As far as app packaging and management goes, there's a lot you can do from an Intune perspective, right? Intune's capable of full Win32 application deployment, multi-file packages. If you run with scripts, you set your own detection rules, your own installers, but that can also be tedious. So do check out that link before. I'm sure it'll be somewhere in the end, because there's amazing partners that are really doing great things to help with apps in Intune, especially if your apps are somewhere else and we got to get them into Intune. So a lot of good answers for that. One nice thing about Intune that's made a lot of lives easier, not just, hey, we're moving to something newer, actually make it better, is the endpoint security. You have actual security baselines that align to best practices like CIS benchmarks and other standards. We have BitLocker encryption policies. You can control Defender, advanced threat protection right from there, and all your attack surface reduction rules, again, all in one place. And then finally, the analytics and reporting. Microsoft's introducing some really advanced, amazing capabilities, especially from the Intune suite, that are coming in this year to Intune, that are just going to make it, you got to be able to see and monitor your data for your devices and who's doing what on them. And that's all going to be in there. But where does this fit into zero trust, right? And the whole, why are we doing this? So if you take a look at device compliance in zero trust, you'll see the whole idea is data coming in and a conditional access policy in the middle that says, yes, you can get to my email. Yes, you can get to Office. Yes, you can, but you need MFA. Yes, but you need device compliance. So having cloud native device management and proper security posture is just one part of this, right? Now, for those of you who are currently managing PCs with your customers, maybe using Endpoint Configuration Manager, System Center, otherwise known as SCCM, again, names, you pick what you like, but you can leave those devices right in Configuration Manager, leave them hybrid join, and use co-management as kind of a beautiful lifeboat to start shifting workloads over. Compliance, configuration, Windows update policies. Give all these responsibilities to Intune so that while your net new devices are being deployed with autopilot directly to users, your current fleet devices don't have to be treated any different. You can give all that responsibility over. So that's a wonderful path for that. As far as a transition strategy, briefly, I'll go over the 4 phases I like to recommend. Start with compliance and Windows Update for business. I have moved so many folks from Windows 10 to 11 just by shifting the Windows Update policy from Configuration Manager to Intune, and it's made such a help, especially upgrading folks to Windows 11 who aren't centralized and they're all over the place. Next, you can start moving your device configuration, your endpoint protection, everything that used to be maybe GPOs. Take a look at those, build them in Intune. Finally, we move the apps over, right? And your resource access policy. And in the final phase, you end up with a full Intune managed device. And maybe we sunset, the co-management, and we don't need that piece because everything's managed by Intune. So some things to watch out for as you go this route, right? On-premise authentication. Testing. It's super important to make sure we do our due diligence and make sure by having an enter-join device, we're not breaking authentication or access to key, components, things relying on Kerberos and TLM, but we have mitigation tools for that. App proxy, cloud Kerberos trust, modernizing the auth of your application set. GPO configurations, right? This is almost a non-issue. Intune even has a tool built in to help us migrate from traditional GPO to Intune. Network file shares, if you still need access to them, you can have access to them. Yes, we should be using OneDrive and SharePoint, but they're not going to let me have enough time to talk about all that. So in the meantime, let's make sure we're implementing, these, access rules so we can still get to that. But yes, absolutely move over to more modern file share things. Printer infrastructure, we used to do that with GPOs. Now we have universal print. You can use Intune printer deployment to just push out single printers. There's a ton of cloud print solutions, so you should be covered there. And certificate services, probably one of my favorite and least favorite things to talk about. Yes, you have an on-prem PKI, you have NDES, you have SCEP. Well, SCEP works great with Intune, but what works even better is the Intune Cloud PKI solution, which gives you a self-hosted PKI that takes minutes to set up. And if you've ever set up NDES and clear a few days off your calendar, but now it's just 15 minutes. So that might be good or bad, depending on if you like your job. So quick go, no-go checklist, right? Must-have criteria. Do you have your Intune license included in? Andy showed you all the licenses it comes in, so I'm sure it's there somewhere, but make sure everyone has it because you don't want someone to go and roll a machine, they get an error, it turns out to be a license. That's kind of a waste of a day. Make sure you test your profiles, your autopilot deployment profiles, your enrollment status pages. Make sure when you build conditional access, it's in report only. We don't want to block access to someone who has to get to an app that's critical to their job. So we want to make sure we have data first. Get your apps packaged over. We have the great partners that'll help you do that. If you have a large library of apps, let's get our help desk trained on Intune. Getting folks hands-on access is always a good thing. And make sure everything is documented and tested. Some nice, those were kind of the you have to have. These are the nice to haves. So cloud Kerberos trust, I'd probably argue it should go in the left. You don't want to break SSO for anything that's on premise. So make sure you have that. Like I said, universal print will help you. Azure file migration for getting to those shared files. You don't have to go nuts trying to remap all your drives. Having a good endpoint analytics baseline established, you do get great telemetry from Intune, so it's important we're familiarizing ourselves with that. User communication is key. If there's going to be a change, communicate often and early and let folks know. Make sure your pilot group is well tested, well documented. If you're looking for certain outcomes, make sure you're documenting those outcomes so we don't get to production and we find out we missed something. And it's a good idea to fine tune and harden your security baselines. Yes, you can take what's available right from Intune, but you might find with different organizations, you have to, some customers have different needs. So make sure you're fine tuning all of those for the needs there. So high level, this is everything. Everything's Entra ID join. Microsoft Intune is the management plane. Conditional access is the zero trust engine. We get all our OSs in there. I will show you what a traditional roadmap looks like, right? You're going to start off with setting up the environment. We move to pilot in phase 2. That's where we're going to validate everything. You can do a broad rollout next, right? Get everyone in there. The more devices you introduce, the more issues go down, hopefully. And then, of course, you're constantly in an optimization phase. Microsoft comes out with new stuff. You want to make sure you're always optimizing to give your users the best experience. So some metrics, sure, we would love to hit 100%. But look, if you can get a substantial chunk of devices in that cloud management state, that's a win. Zero hybrid join dependencies for most folks. I don't think that's an issue. Autopilot deployment, I like to aim for under 15 minutes. That's my personal rule. I think that makes a good user experience. It's more of a guide to keep yourself by. And of course, compliance, we want 95%. So main point, make sure we're looking forward to cloud native management. And thank you.
And thank you so much, Steve. A really great journey through how to get somewhere that seems a little daunting sometimes. And I know that, taking a look at the documentation, it can seem like there's so many steps, but I just want to reiterate, I've got a friend on the Windows team and he says, look, when we talk about the cloud native journey, we just need to talk about a few things, and Steve hit them, right? First, co-management. Move your workloads to Intune, and then on a device refresh cycle, natively enroll devices. Don't worry about doing device resets and whether or not users are going to be with that. Once you get those workloads managed by Intune, you can take advantage of auto patch. Steve talked about how easy it was to make the upgrade from Windows 10 to Windows 11. Leo and I, before we started working on Intune growth, we were working on Windows auto patch. It's a really, really great setup for a lot of sort of set and forget capabilities. So thanks again, Steve. We're going to revisit one of his resources later on in the call. But what I want to talk to you about now is, hey, if you're out in the world, if you're going to some of these big conferences and some smaller conferences, you can find Lior and some of the Intune team at Experts Live Denmark. Gosh, that's coming up in just 1 week. And then this April in Paris, which, as I understand, as the song tells me, is a great time to be in Paris. We'll be at the Modern Endpoint Management Summit. And we, of course, as the Intune team, I will be your host here from the command center, making sure that we've got beautiful slides and great messaging for you. So that's where to find us live coming up. Our next session will be March 17th, again, 8 a.m. Pacific time start time. We do record these sessions for playback later on the Tech Center. We're going to have another talented MVP guest, Andrew Taylor, and he's going to talk about, when I asked him if he could speak to this subject, he said, well, I did write a book on it. So we're going to talk about automation and scripting with Microsoft Intune. MVP Andrew Taylor, who has written a book on automation and scripting. So I have this segment, I like to call it watch one thing or read one thing. The one thing this month that I think is really going to make a difference for you as an MSP is from our MVP, Steve Weiner. And it's a YouTube video. Here's the QR code. You can also find Steve's socials on his MVP page. Connect with him on LinkedIn. He wants you to go to his YouTube channel where he's got great videos like this. This is about using PowerShell scripts as app installers. And if you know what that means, it's going to be powerful. And if it doesn't, there's other content there for you to get up to speed so you can understand just how powerful it is to add this feature. And of course, the way I end every call, inviting you to set the agenda for the future calls. We're on a 6-month voyage into the Intune for MSPs landscape. Take out your phone, scan this QR code, or open a browser window and go to aka.ms/Intune MSP survey. Tell us a little about yourself, but more importantly, tell us what you want to hear, what questions you want answered, what topics you want to explore, what you need from Microsoft in order to build and grow your business. It's something that I've spent the last 2 years working on, and it's really important to me that you get that opportunity to get everything that Microsoft creates. It's sometimes hard to find those resources. So that's what we're here for every month, to share with you what we're doing to make Intune work for MSPs what we're doing to help you with technical training that's MSP specific and what we're doing with MSP specific marketing. So again, visit our resource page, download these resources, get to know the Zero Trust Workshop, and then let us know, is this working for you? How can I prepare this for you in a way that's meaningful, easy to use? That's my goal. And with that in mind, we're going to call it time for this meetup. And I'm grateful for all of your participation. Again, I've been Andy Rostad. This is the Intune for MSPs meetup. We'll see you next month, March 17th. And again, aka.ms/Intune for MSPs is that resource page where you can find everything you need from this call. So thanks again for being here. Leave your comments on the Tech Community Live page, on the LinkedIn page. We look at them all, we read them all. Your input is really valuable to me. And we hope that we can make Intune work for your MSP. So thanks again for being here. And this is it. We're signing off.